Welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you're gearing up for the AB 100 exam, do me a favor and go ahead and grab a whiteboard marker because you are exactly where you need to be. Today, we're diving into a high-stakes masterclass on the 5 enterprise architectures you absolutely need to know. And look, I don't just mean recognizing them on a multiple-choice test, no way. I mean you need to be able to draw them entirely from memory. Because out in the real world, architects are constantly grilled on the spot, and this exam is designed to reflect that exact pressure. So, let's get into it.
To really set the scene here, I want you to picture Anir. He's a brilliant platform and governance architect, but right now, he is sweating under the fluorescent lights of a highly skeptical architecture review board. He's up there pitching a brand new AI agent, and the CISO stops him cold, leans in and says, "Show me exactly where the PHI data boundary is, who approved it, and how we would prove what happened in an audit." That right there, that is exactly the situation you're training for. This isn't just some hypothetical academic exercise. This is the real-world test that every single design must pass before it ever gets anywhere close to a production environment.
And honestly, that's why these 5 governed global reference architectures are so fundamental. They aren't just shapes and boxes for rote memorization. Think of them as dynamic mental models. They give you the structural thinking required to actually defend an AI system against threats and compliance audits. Because when you're sitting across from an auditor, they aren't going to award you points for having a pretty diagram, right? They are going to ruthlessly test the logic of the shield you've built. So treat these mental models as your absolute armor.
Let's dive right into the very first one, the Enterprise AI Landing Zone. This is your foundation, built strictly with governance in mind. If we walk left to right through this structure, we start with the tenant that holds your core identity rules. Next up, management groups handle policy inheritance, so guardrails apply automatically across the board. Third is the AI platform subscription, where the actual models live. But okay, pay incredibly close attention to the 4th step here, the data subscription. This is deliberately kept completely separate. By isolating that data, you ensure that even if an AI model goes completely rogue, it doesn't automatically hold the keys to your entire data kingdom. And finally, the 5th node is the ops subscription, which securely routes all of your monitoring and cost telemetry.
Now, let me put on my exam proctor hat for a second, because the AB 100 absolutely loves to test failure modes. This architecture maps 4 critical planes: identity, network, governance, and evidence. The exam is going to ask what breaks if any of these are missing. So, missing the identity plane, you get over-permissioned agents. Skip the network plane, you're looking at uncontrolled outbound actions and data exfiltration. Drop the governance plane, we'll say hello to shadow AI. And my personal favorite trap, the evidence plane. If you don't link actions to ITSM records, your system is unauditable. Just imagine an auditor asking for proof of an AI's decision, and you have 0 records to hand them. It is game over.
Moving right along to our 2nd architecture, Secure Grounded RAG. This outlines the strict 6-step pipeline every single knowledge-grounded agent must follow. We go from sources to ingest, chunk, index, retrieve, and finally, generate. Now, I know it sounds so fast and simple when you just list them out in a row like that, but remember, Anir has to defend every single one of those 6 steps to the CISO. There are absolutely no hand-waving shortcuts allowed in this pipeline.
The crucial takeaway for this one is that each step in this pipeline requires an architectural decision, not just a technical default. For instance, you shouldn't just chunk your data by some arbitrary character count. You need business-aware chunking, meaning you're splitting by specific policy sections so the agent doesn't accidentally chop a key regulatory clause in half. For indexing, you're going to want a hybrid index that combines vector search with keyword search to catch exact terms. And retrieval? That must be executed under an OBO, or on behalf of identity token. In plain English, that just means the AI wears the user's specific ID badge when it's searching for files.
Which brings us to the ultimate exam failure mode for this section. Listen closely to this one. RAG does not fix poor source governance. Semantic ranking and vector search cannot magically fix stale policy documents or bad ingestion. You literally can't just unleash vector search on a decade-old chaotic dumping ground of a SharePoint drive and expect it to magically organize your company's mess. If your source files aren't properly labeled, secured, and fresh before they ever enter the pipeline, your entire AI output is instantly compromised.
All right, that leads us right into the 3rd architecture, the Agentic Governance Gateway. I want you to think of this as a strict digital gauntlet. Every single action request from an agent must survive 6 check stations: identity, policy, data boundary, safety, approval, and evidence. Picture what the bot actually experiences here. It steps up,
gets its identity checked against the directory, has its target verified against company policy, proves it isn't crossing a data boundary, passes a safety filter, waits for human approval if required, and logs the receipt. Every single time.
And make no mistake, the exam will test you heavily on how strict this enforcement really is. The rule is absolute. Failure at any station equals blocked. If an EAR's system tries to bypass a safety check, or if it lacks a required human-in-the-loop sign-off, the architecture doesn't just flag it, it doesn't send a polite warning email to IT. No, it drops a concrete barricade. The action is outright blocked, zero exceptions.
Let's look at the fourth architecture, the OBO Identity Flow. This one's elegantly simple, just 4 clean nodes: user, to agent, to SharePoint, to answer. The magic here is all in that delegated OBO token we mentioned earlier, which enforces the user's exact permission boundary. To put a concrete example on it, if I ask the agent to summarize the Q3 financials, and I don't personally have access to the Q3 folder in SharePoint, the agent simply replies that it can't find it. It mimics my exact limitations perfectly.
So let's talk about the classic failure mode that absolutely destroys this beautiful setup. Why does giving an agent a global read service account break the enterprise security model? Well, imagine granting a summer intern a master key to every locked filing cabinet in the entire building just so they can fetch one specific public file for you. That is exactly what a global read account does. A user with restricted access can suddenly use the agent to pull highly sensitive HR or financial documents they normally couldn't see. You never, ever expand the agent's identity to work around lazy source governance.
Now we map out our fifth and final architecture, the AI release pipeline. This traces an agent's journey through dev, test, pre-prod, prod, and crucially, the improve stage. Passing the AB100 exam requires understanding that hitting prod isn't the finish line. Actually, scratch that. It's more like the starting line for operations. An AI agent's job isn't magically done just because it's successfully deployed to live users.
So what happens if your pipeline stops at prod? Well, missing the improve loop leads directly to concept drift. Without that evaluation cycle running in the background, your shiny new AI starts to degrade. It begins relying on stale data, learns bad habits from uncorrected user interactions, and slowly drifts into a tangled mess of inaccurate outputs. The improve stage is absolutely essential because it's what triggers the updates and regression tests needed to keep the system sharp and reliable.
Which brings us all the way back to Anir. Remember him? He's still sweating under those fluorescent lights in the review board. The CISO looks at him, hands him a whiteboard marker, and asks the ultimate test an architect must pass before an AI agent is ever allowed into production. The simple question: can you draw the paths?
Those 4 critical paths are your core checklist: the data path, the identity path, the action path, and the evidence path. If you can't map out exactly where the data travels, what token enforces the permissions, what actions are prohibited, and exactly how to prove every single step during an audit 3 years from now, well, you simply do not understand your system yet. Mastering these architectures is how you survive the review board and crush the AB100 exam. So I'll leave you with this. If an auditor walked into your office right now, could you step up and draw your paths on the whiteboard? Keep that structural thinking in mind, and you'll be unstoppable. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.